Coming into this video, I noticed that you've been particularly interested in the list of 2020 fights. So to give you a perfect gift, I decided that I'll be doing a second part of it. Why? Well, because believe it or not, the year 2020 still has a lot of awesome anime fights that I didn't feature in the first list. Keep in mind, I didn't include any fights which I mentioned in the Fall Fights video which I published recently. So make sure to check that video out if you haven't done so already. Now, I won't keep you waiting, and for this list, I'll be going through another series of 10 fights that you might want to look out for. It goes without saying that just like the first video, this video will contain spoilers. I'll try to keep them down as much as I can though, so that you can watch the video and go and enjoy the featured anime in full. Now, this feels like a new thing, a railgun fight that has Misaka playing the antagonist role. Against her is the unlikely pairing of Thorma and Gunnar. To think of it, the level 0 and the level 5 make an excellent complementary team. Thorma takes care of the magical stuff while Gunnar just smacks the physical attacks around. Still, a dream team up like that finds itself in a tough pickle against Misaka, who continues on with her Aizen-like state of constantly evolving mid-fight. This fight got us some cool moments, like Thorma unleashing those dragons that look out of place and so fitting in the Dowaru-verse at the same time. You know, Misaka doesn't get enough credit, but I think that this fight shows just how strong she really can be in the grand scale of things. Maybe because we just know Misaka for doing electromagnetic stuff and shooting a laser beam from her finger, which looks underwhelming in a world where the strongest people have reality warping powers. But when you look at this fight, it pretty much took the mainline series main character and 2 level 5s to bring her back to normal. Not beat her, mind you, just bring her back to normal. One of the most awesome ass-kicking this 2020 courtesy of One Piece comes in the form of Zoro vs Gamazo. It's a brutal showdown between multi-wielders that gave us some of the best fight animations and adaptations in this year for One Piece. The anime did some retouching on this scene, which drew quite the divisive reception from the fan base that compared it to the manga. Nonetheless, you can't deny that the effects did add quite a bit to the fight, which is already an amazing display of Zoro's prowess. Catching up to One Piece is a ginormous task, but now you know what's in store. The animation in the Wano arc has been pretty spot on. There's a reason why the series is still one of the biggest ones worldwide, and while I don't think that the fights are the primary reasons for that, they sure play a decently major part. SAO's final Alicization season had its moments with its fights, and while I enjoyed a lot of them, I think that it would be a shame not to include the finale on a top 10 list. On the first list, I gave the nod to the Berkoli fight for the sheer awesomeness of the cool uncle mentor character being badass and its breathtaking animation. However, on a personal basis, this is the fight that I go back to once in a while to rewatch. Kirito vs Subtilizer is probably one of the best finales a fan of the series can ask for. We get to see Kirito firing off the culmination of all his experiences and skills obtained in Underworld, as well as updated callbacks to when the series was the hottest thing in town, like the Starburst dream while in his signature old attire. And don't tell me you don't get a little bit emotional when Kirito took the thoughts and prayers of every single living being in Underworld in the form of stars to unleash his final attack. I think the one thing that seriously holds this fight back is the lack of a connection between the two combatants. They're just fighting each other for the sake of protecting or destroying this world, and it would have been better if Subtilizer was someone Kirito had a personal stake with. Fog Hill returns with a second fight to make the list. It's really telling when your anime with less episodes than one hand can count already has 2 fights that I can claim are some of the top fights in 2020, but Fog Hill of 5 Elements did it. For today, I'm featuring the bridge fight, which is really no slouch compared to the one I featured on the previous list. If you recall, I did feature this one on yet another list, but I think that it just holds up so well to have it on multiple lists. Even when you look at 2020 as a whole, I still find this so exhilarating, and the fact that it's on a show that's not being watched by many is just the icing on top. Fog Hill is not a huge time investment, so I really encourage you to give it a try. The story's decent, but when it comes to the animation and fight scenes, it's outright top tier even in 2020 as a whole. If you want me to name a hidden gem this year with respect to the anime's overall popularity and the quality of fight scenes, then Hitori no Shita would find its way to the top of the list. It's a serious contender for topping that list outright. If you don't believe me, let the clip do the talking for me then. To the animator's credit, the research really shows. I honestly believe it's one of the strongest points of the series. The guys doing the animating really know their stuff. In Hitori no Shita, you can really feel a sense of realism in its combat scenes. Just watch and tell me if you agree with what I see. You can really feel the impact of each blow here. If you consider yourself a martial arts aficionado, you might want to try Hitori no Shita out. However, I'd recommend not watching this just for the fights and starting all the way back at its first season. Danmachi has its fair share of great fights in its seasonal runs, and this year we got another treat in the form of Bell's fight against Asterius. Personally, I think that Bell really works well as an underdog in his fights, and this one is no exception. There's just something about the plucky underdog appeal that Bell has, especially contrasted to the other characters that his voice actor is famous for voicing. It opens up a rarely seen intensity that the voice actor does so well at conveying. It really adds to the desperation that the fight tries to present. Great sound direction and excellent animation make this one of the best fights of 2020, no doubt. The fight itself is no slouch as well. People have been joking that this fight is where the season's budget went, and you know what? I actually agree. On another note, this fight begs the question of how many more times Bell and his favorite Minotaur opponent are gonna fight.
付き合ってくれよ。
Fire Force just ended, but months before it did, it gave us an amazing fight with Joker fighting Soul Commander. Would it be a pun to say that this season of Fire Force has been lit? I've always liked the series, and it didn't disappoint with the overall improved quality that this season has compared to the first one. Well, I guess that's debatable. I personally like the developments more in the first part, but the second part gets it right with the fights. Now, enough of that, and I'll let you enjoy the actual battle between Joker and Soul Commander. This is a particularly good one for me because Joker's one of my favorite characters in the show, and seeing him in action is always a pleasing sight to behold. It also helps that the fight is full of moments that will have you jumping out of your seats, or at least widening your eyes, just saying, wow. Joker's voice actor also nailed it in this scene. Joker may or may not be your favorite anti-hero, but his presence in Fire Force is a much appreciated one. "2020's My Hero Academia has had some great fights. After featuring Endeavor's fight, it's time to look at Deku versus Overhaul. Overhaul's one tough cookie, and given how overpowered his abilities are, wondering how he would be defeated is one of the things that kept me watching the latest season of My Hero Academia. For one, I knew that it had to be Deku to beat him as per shonen anime standards, but given how Deku's attacks play into the villain's speciality, I was really curious as to how Overhaul would be beaten. Turns out the old adage is true. If you don't beat someone the first time around, you're just not using enough firepower. Thankfully, Deku got his from Ares' quirk that allowed him to unleash One for All at its full 100%, finally breaking through Overhaul's regenerative capabilities, new form or not. Overcoming Overhaul's recovery cooldown with the rate of his attacks, Deku was able to put down the villain for good by just hitting fast and hard. It may sound simple on paper, but wait till you see the scene. I just had goosebumps looking at how the fight finished in the anime, and it's still a fight that I get back to every now and then. Now let's take a look at Jin versus Ilpio, a fight that does its job in encapsulating the craziness that goes on in God of High School. It's a battle of the gods, quite literally, in this showdown that features a lot of grappling, striking, transformations, and two fighters just throwing whatever supernatural god powers they have at each other. It's a decently long fight that has some cool stuff in it, but honestly speaking, I'm more surprised that the ring remained intact after all of that. The story for God of High School might not be too accurate of an adaptation of the webtoon, but the animation is something to live for. This, my friends, is anime in 2020. Is it the best fight in the series? Well, not for me. I mean, it's in the second volume of the list, not the first. But, damn, it's an awesome fight. The biggest upstart in the shonen scene deserves a featured fight on the list. While people have been raving over the Gojo fight for an extended period of time, I think that the fight against Mahito doesn't get enough credit. It didn't blow the internet up like Gojo's fight did, but I would say that this fight can go toe-to-toe with that one, and as a finale to the first part of Jujutsu Kaisen, I think he did a damn good job. The previous fight shows us the first major display of Nanami's abilities when he takes on Mahito in a chaotic fight that gets interrupted. He does get to show off his time-based abilities, and you've got to wonder what can top that. Well, it turns out it's having the main character join the fray in a fight that Mahito still looks to be in control of despite the numbers disadvantage. Throw in some god-tier animation and very creative powers, and it comes as no surprise how Jujutsu Kaisen has quickly risen to the top of the shonen anime rankings. It's an amazing finish too, with Yuji powering his way into domain expansion, saving his mentor, and finishing the battle with a decisive victory. With that, we end this list. Feel free to comment on any other fights you think deserve to be on this list. If you enjoyed content like this, then please like and subscribe. You can also check out my other channel and subscribe to that one if you enjoy video essays. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in the next one, and I'll see you next time on ViniTube.